This year marks the 50th anniversary of the death of New York Senator Robert Kennedy. Gerard Doherty, the son of a Boston firefighter and former chair of the Elms College Board of Trustees, was a trusted political advisor to Bobby Kennedy, as well as his brothers, President John F. Kennedy and Senator Ted Kennedy. Doherty's book, They Were My Friends, Jack, Bob, and Ted, My Life in and Out of Politics, gives a first-hand account of the golden age of the Kennedy political dynasty. Steve Kiltonick sat down with the author last spring before a talk at Elms College.
He was one of the few men who had the ear of all three Kennedy brothers at some of the most crucial and influential moments of their political lives. As the trusted advisor to President John Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, along with Presidents Lyndon Johnson and Jimmy Carter, Gerard F. Doherty held a unique position in Massachusetts politics during the golden age of the Kennedy political dynasty. On March 15th, in celebration of St. Patrick's Day, the College of Our Lady of the Elms hosted a talk entitled An Evening with Gerard Doherty at a packed Veritas auditorium. Here, Doherty spoke of his recent book, They Were My Friends, Jack, Bob, and Ted, My Life in and Out of Politics. In the book, Doherty, the son of a Boston firefighter, offers a rare, first-hand, behind-the-scenes account of his unlikely rise to the top of the Massachusetts political leadership and tells readers of his role behind the Kennedy political machine at key moments in history. Doherty also details his efforts to help Presidents Johnson and Carter win the White House. Doherty's talk at the Elms serves as a trip back to familiar territory. He served as chair of the Elms College Board of Trustees from 1988 to 1995. Doherty is also the husband of the late Marilyn Doherty, who was a 1953 alumna of the college. Born in Boston in 1928, Doherty grew up in the heavily Irish-American wards of Charlestown. He attended Malden Catholic High, Harvard University, and Wayne University. Doherty was elected to the Massachusetts House of Representatives in 1956, representing the 2nd Suffolk District. In 1961, he graduated from Suffolk University Law School. Doherty first became involved with the Kennedys in 1952 when John was running for the Senate. Doherty supported Kennedy and helped in his campaign by gathering signatures.
There was some profoundness about him, and he generated esteem, so I did some work for him.
As the first elected Catholic president, Doherty said Kennedy wasn't shy about his faith.
He was a Catholic, and he told you he was a Catholic. He also would tell you, I don't want people around me blessing themselves every minute, but I mean, I'm a Catholic, and that's what I believe.
In 1960, 4 or 5 months after being elected, Kennedy summoned Doherty to the White House.
And he said, you've done pretty well in the legislature. And I said, thank you. He said, and you're smart, and you're pleasant. And I said, well, thank you. He said, my younger brother, Ted, wants to run for office. And we have decided that you're the best coach and guardian.
As the chairman of the Massachusetts Democratic Party, Doherty started to work on Ted Kennedy's election campaign. He said at first, politics didn't come easy to Ted.
Well, they all had different strengths, which made them successful. The one who was probably you or I would think would be the friendliest, the easiest to get to know was Teddy. And Teddy was at first very shy, but he had this thing that he'd talk to telephone poles. I mean, he loved people.
During the campaign for Senate, Ted continued Jack's ritual of resting in the bathtub at 2 p.m. for 2 hours. Doherty recounts a humorous story where he and Ted were traveling through southern Worcester County on the campaign trail.
And Teddy said to me, I'm exhausted. My back is killing me. I have to soak.
After 5 minutes driving, Kennedy told Doherty to stop and knock on the door of a house.
Door opens as this guy who had pants on and an old T-shirt. What do you want? And I said, my friend, Ted Kennedy, wants to use your bathtub. And he said, "You what?" He said, "What kind of a joke is this?"
Doherty convinced the incredulous man that Ted Kennedy was in fact Ted Kennedy.
So Ted went in and soaked for 2 hours in the bathtub and come back. And then the next day, he sent the biggest basket of fruit to this guy, and this guy went into the Worcester and told everybody about it. He had all this fruit from Ted Kennedy.
On June 19, 1964, Ted Kennedy was traveling in a small twin-engine plane with fellow Senator Birch Bayh and his wife, a legislative aide, Ed Moss, and Edwin Zimmy, the pilot. They were en route to Barnes Memorial Airport in Westfield to attend the state's Democratic Convention in West Springfield. Kennedy was campaigning for re-election to the Senate. The plane encountered visibility issues, went into a dive, and crashed in Bashista Orchards in Southampton, 3 miles short of the runway. Moss and Zimny later died from their injuries. Ted broke 3 vertebrae, 2 ribs, and had a collapsed lung. Kennedy spent 5 months in Northampton's Cooley Dickinson Hospital, confined to a special brace called a striker frame. It was while recuperating in Cooley Dickinson that Ted would discover his life's mission, healthcare.
That's when he got so committed to life care and how people could be helped. But once he spent 7 months in the striker frame, where he would be on the stomach for 8 hours and put him around. And he decided that he was going to do something. I would say from the time he got out of the hospital to the time he died, his major consideration is how can we do better for people who have a health problem. And he created all of our health care as it is now.
In 1968, Doherty was asked to help Robert Kennedy in the Indiana primary when he first announced his candidacy for the presidency.
Bobby, on the other sense, was just intense. I mean, he had one focus. He didn't have any political friends, so it was left to me to hunt and pick and whatever we had to do. And he was very intense, very focused.
Because Kennedy wasn't attracting large crowds to the early rallies, Doherty said a different approach was needed.
Why don't you change your speeches from "I will do this"? Why don't you have the speech, "We together are going to do this"? And suddenly his approach took off. He wasn't arrogant, he wasn't remote, he was we.
Kennedy ended up winning Indiana in an upset. Before the next major primary in California, Doherty agreed to head up Bobby's New York campaign.
On the 3rd of June, my bags were packed. My wife and I went up and got in bed, put on the 11 o'clock news, because I was leaving the next day to go to New York and run the campaign. And it flashed on that he had been killed.
After Bobby's death, Doherty remained close to Ted and his nieces and nephews. The two remained lifelong friends until Senator Kennedy died in 2009. At the Doherty Talk, political consultant Anthony Signoli emceed the event. And Wayne Fanoff, executive editor of the Republican newspaper, served as the moderator. Elms College president Dr. Harry DeMay spoke of Doherty's road to success.
The achievements that Mr. Doherty accomplished were not handed to him on a silver platter. He had to overcome some long odds and some personal challenges to be where he is, to achieve the success that he had. And so in thinking about our students, I thought their obstacles would not be the same as those that Mr. Doherty had to overcome, but the way to overcome them would be the same. It is through hard work, perseverance, determination, and grit. And so,
DeMay's wish is that students will be inspired by Doherty's life story. After the talk, audience members got the opportunity to ask questions. An evening with Gerard Doherty transported attendees back to a time of the mythical Camelot, when the Kennedy dynasty was in all its glory. For most, that made the night all worthwhile. For Reel to Reel, I'm Steve Kiltonic.
And They Were My Friends is available on Amazon.com and at Barnes & Noble.